I was sitting in my truck pen in hand, signing the final papers on my first house. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a small yard, where I could finally plant those tomatoes I had been dreaming about. The real estate agent smiled and shook my hand, congratulating me on becoming a homeowner at 30 years old. I felt this wave of pride wash over me, the kind that comes from knowing you worked hard for something and actually achieved it. But as I sat there looking at those keys in my palm, my mind drifted back 3 years to this exact parking spot where I had cried after Sarah told me I was too nice for her. She said she needed someone with more edge, someone unpredictable and exciting. Before I get into how everything unfolded, I would love to know where you are watching from. Drop your city in the comments below. And if you have ever been called too nice or too boring, hit that like button and subscribe, because this story is about to show you why responsible guys actually finish first when it truly matters. Trust me, you will want to hear how this played out. Let me take you back to where it all started. My name is Raphael, and 3 years ago, I was 28 years old, working as a project manager at a mid-sized engineering firm in Portland, Oregon. I made around $75,000 a year, which was decent for someone my age. I was not rich, but I was stable. Every morning I woke up at 6 a.m., made my coffee, prepared a simple breakfast, and headed to work. My apartment was small but organized. Everything had its place. I paid my bills on time, saved money every month, and had a clear plan for my future. Buy a house within 3 years, keep advancing at work, maybe start a family someday. I knew what I wanted, and I was methodical about getting there. My weekends were usually spent hiking. Portland has incredible trails, and I loved being out in nature. I would pack a lunch drive up to one of the gorges and spend hours walking through the forests. When I was not hiking, I was reading history books or experimenting with new recipes in my kitchen. I had taught myself to make pretty good pasta from scratch. My life was quiet, predictable, and honestly, I liked it that way. I was not trying to set the world on fire. I just wanted to build something solid. That is when I met Sarah. It was at an art gallery opening downtown. My company was one of the sponsors, so I had to attend. I was not really into the art scene, but I figured I would show up, shake some hands, and leave early. That is when I saw her standing in front of this massive painting of Mount Hood. She was staring at it so intensely, like she was trying to memorize every brush stroke. I walked over and made some comment about how the artist really captured the way the light hits the mountain at sunset. She turned to me and smiled, and we started talking. Sarah was 26, a graphic designer at a creative agency. She was vibrant, energetic, and passionate about her work. She told me about her projects, about how she wanted to eventually freelance full-time and travel while working remotely. I loved listening to her talk. She had this spark in her eyes that made everything she said sound fascinating. We exchanged numbers that night, and 2 days later, I asked her to go hiking with me. Our first hike together was up Angel's Rest Trail. I packed sandwiches I had made that morning, fresh fruit, and a thermos of hot chocolate, because the weather forecast said it would be chilly at the top. When we reached the summit, and I pulled out the picnic, Sarah looked genuinely touched. She said most guys she had dated would have just suggested grabbing fast food on the way. We sat there for 2 hours talking about everything: our childhoods, our dreams, our favorite books and movies. By the time we hiked back down, I knew I wanted to see her again. The first 3 months were incredible. We fell into this comfortable rhythm. I would pick her up for dinner dates, and I always made sure to choose restaurants she had mentioned wanting to try. When she told me her car broke down and needed repairs, I drove her to work every morning for a week and picked her up every evening. It was not a burden. I genuinely enjoyed spending that extra time with her. I remember her telling me that she felt safe with me, that she appreciated how dependable I was. Those words meant everything to me. Around the 4th month, I met her friends. They were a diverse group artists and musicians and freelancers. I tried my best to fit in, even though I felt a bit out of place. They talked about spontaneous road trips and late-night parties, while I was mentally calculating if I could still make my 8 a.m. meeting the next day. But I made an effort. When Sarah's best friend had a birthday, I remembered and bought a thoughtful gift. Sarah seemed happy that I was integrating into her world. By month 6, we took a weekend trip to Cannon Beach. I had reserved a hotel room with an ocean view and planned out a whole itinerary. We walked along the beach, visited the tide pools, had dinner at a seafood restaurant overlooking Haystack Rock. Sarah posted photos on social media with captions like, "Perfect weekend with my person." I felt like we were building something real. But somewhere around month 7, I started noticing small changes. Sarah would make comments that seemed harmless at first. When I brought her flowers every Friday like I always did, she said, "You are so predictable, Raphael." She said it with a smile, but there was something in her tone. Another time I suggested we stay in and watch a movie because I had an early morning meeting. She sighed and said, "Do you ever want to do something spontaneous?" I did not know how to respond. To me, being reliable was not a bad thing. Then Trent entered the picture. Sarah mentioned him casually at first. She had met him at a concert downtown. He was a bartender and played guitar in a local band. She said he was different from anyone she had ever known, that he had this free spirit about him. I did not think much of it initially. Sarah had male friends, and I trusted her. But over the next few weeks, she brought him up more and more. She started going to his band's shows. When I offered to come with her, she said the music was probably too loud for me, that it was not really my scene. That stung, but I tried not to show it. Sarah began spending less time with me. She said she was busy with work projects and needed space to focus. I gave her that space because I respected her needs. But then I saw on social media that she had gone to another one of Trent's concerts. She had not mentioned it to me. When I asked her about it, she got defensive. She said I was being controlling, that she was allowed to have her own life. I backed off, but the distance between us kept growing. One evening I decided to be direct. I asked her if everything was okay between us. She looked uncomfortable. She said she did not know, that sometimes she felt like we were too different. I asked her what she meant. She said I was stable and responsible, which were good qualities, but maybe we wanted different things. I pressed her to be honest. That is when she admitted she had been spending a lot of time with Trent, that he made her feel alive in ways she had not felt before. My heart sank. I asked her if she wanted to be with him instead. She hesitated, then said she needed to figure things out. I told her I would give her time, but deep down, I knew what was coming. A few days later, she asked to meet me at the coffee shop, where we had our first official date. I knew it was over before she even said the words. We sat across from each other, and she could barely look me in the eye. She started with the classic line, "You are an amazing person, Raphael. You are kind, reliable, responsible. Any woman would be lucky to have you." I waited for the but. She continued, "But I think you are too nice for me. I need someone with more edge, someone unpredictable. I need excitement." I asked her if boring was how she saw me. She quickly said no, but her eyes told a different story. I asked about Trent. She admitted she had feelings for him, that he represented something she had been missing. I did not beg. I did not argue. I just sat there feeling like someone had punched me in the stomach. Being too nice. That was the reason. Not cheating, not incompatibility, not anything I could fix. Just my fundamental nature was apparently a problem. I left that coffee shop, got into my truck, and sat there for an hour just trying to process what had happened. I kept asking myself if there was something wrong with me. Was being dependable really such a flaw? Should I have been more reckless, more unpredictable? The rejection hurt, But what hurt more was questioning everything I thought I knew about myself. The first week after the breakup was brutal. I went to work, did my job, came home, and stared at the walls. I could not stop checking Sarah's social media. I know I should not have, but I could not help myself. She was posting photos constantly. Pictures of her and Trent at concerts, late-night drives, spontaneous adventures to the coast. One caption read, "Finally living," with a fire emoji. That one particularly hurt. Was she implying she had not been living with me, that our time together had been some kind of prison? My best friend Marcus tried to cheer me up. He took me out for drinks and told me I had dodged a bullet, that Sarah did not know what she was missing. But his words felt hollow. If I was such a catch, why did she leave? I started wondering if I needed to change. Maybe I should go out more, be less predictable, take more risks. I bought some different clothes, tried going to bars on weeknights, even though I had work the next morning. But it all felt fake. I was pretending to be someone I was not, and it was exhausting. By the second month, I made a decision. I was going to stop following Sarah online and stop trying to be someone I was not. Instead, I would focus on myself. I joined a gym and started working out every morning before work. I signed up for additional projects at my company, throwing myself into my career. I kept saving money for my house down payment. If being responsible and stable was who I was, then I would own it. I would become the best version of that person, not apologize for it. Around month 3, I started feeling better. The pain was still there, but it was duller. I was sleeping better, eating better, and actually enjoying my work. I got recognition from my boss for leading a successful project. My savings account kept growing. I was building something, even if it was just for myself. Then I started hearing things through mutual friends. Marcus ran into Sarah and Trent at a restaurant. He said they looked happy that Trent was talking about his band recording an album. Sarah apparently introduced Trent as the most exciting person she had ever met. When Marcus told me this, I felt that familiar sting, but I did not let it consume me. I just nodded and changed the subject. A few months later, a colleague who knew Sarah mentioned seeing her post about moving in with Trent. The caption was something about starting a new chapter with her wild soul. I felt a mix of emotions. Part of me wondered if I really had lost her to someone better. But another part of me, the part that was growing stronger every day, reminded myself that I was on my own path. I was not competing with Trent. I was building my own life. That is when Jessica, who was one of Sarah's close friends, accidentally sent me a text meant for someone else. It said, "Can you believe Sarah is paying for everything? Trent got fired again." Jessica immediately deleted the message and sent an apology, but I had already seen it. I did not respond. I just sat there absorbing that information. So Trent had been fired. And Sarah was covering all the expenses. Jessica, feeling guilty, decided to be honest with me. She called and explained that Trent had lost his bartending job for showing up late repeatedly. He told Sarah he needed to focus on his music career. The band was not actually going anywhere. They played small bar gigs maybe twice a month. Sarah was paying rent, groceries, utilities, everything. Jessica said Sarah was stressed, but kept defending Trent, saying he was an artist who needed time to find his path. Over the next few months, Jessica kept me updated without me even asking. She seemed to feel bad about what had happened and wanted me to know the truth. She told me Trent had borrowed $500 from Sarah to fix his motorcycle and never paid it back. Then he borrowed another $300 for guitar equipment, also not repaid. Sarah had to take on freelance projects on top of her full-time job just to keep up with bills. Jessica said Sarah looked exhausted every time they met. The apartment was a mess because Trent did not clean. He had friends over late at night making noise. When Sarah complained, he called her uptight. Then came the real crisis. The landlord warned them about late rent payments. Sarah had to drain her savings to cover rent that Trent was supposed to split. He did not even thank her properly, just acted like it was expected. They started arguing about responsibility. Trent accused Sarah of trying to change him and not supporting his dreams. The pattern continued month after month. Trent's band broke up due to internal conflicts, and of course, Trent blamed everyone else. He started drinking more. He told Sarah he needed to find himself, whatever that meant. He refused to look for stable work, claiming those jobs would kill his creativity. Marcus saw Sarah at a grocery store one day. He said she looked completely drained with dark circles under her eyes. She was buying ramen and the cheapest food available. When he said hello, she forced a smile, but it did not reach her eyes. Jessica told me Sarah had burned through all her savings, over $12,000 gone. She had to borrow $5,000 from her parents, who were now begging her to leave Trent. But Sarah was stubborn. She did not want to admit she had made a mistake. She avoided me completely, probably out of embarrassment. Meanwhile, my life was moving in the opposite direction. In August of that second year, I got promoted to senior project manager. My salary jumped to $90,000. I led a major project that came in under budget and ahead of schedule. Upper management noticed. I was being groomed for bigger responsibilities. Financially, I had saved $30,000 for a house down payment. I met with a financial advisor, got pre-approved for a mortgage, and started seriously looking at properties. I was on track to achieve my goal. Personally, I had grown too. I joined a hiking club and made new friends who shared my interests. I was in the best physical shape of my life, thanks to my consistent gym routine. I even started learning guitar, which felt ironic given the circumstances, but I was doing it for myself, not to compete with anyone. I went on a few casual dates, but I was not rushing into anything. I had learned that I needed to find someone who appreciated me for who I was, not someone I had to change for. My mindset had completely shifted. I realized that being nice was not a weakness. It was a strength when paired with the right person. Being responsible was not boring. It was freedom. I had the freedom to buy a house, to make choices without financial stress, to sleep well at night, knowing my bills were paid. I was not bitter about Sarah. I was actually grateful. She had inadvertently pushed me to become not just nice, but strong. Not just kind, but boundaried. Not just responsible, but truly free. By month 24, I found the perfect house. It was in the suburbs of Portland, a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home with a small yard. The price was $350,000, and I qualified for the mortgage without any issues. I started the paperwork to close the deal. My life felt full and purposeful. Around the same time, Jessica told me that Sarah and Trent were facing eviction. They had not paid rent for 3 months, owing over $4,000. Trent absolutely refused to get a job, saying he would not sell his soul to the corporate world. Sarah was desperate and did not know what to do. I felt sad hearing this, but I did not get involved. I had my own life to focus on, and I was about to close on my house. That was my priority. 1 week after I signed the final paperwork on my house, I was celebrating with Marcus at a coffee shop downtown. It was a Saturday afternoon, sunny and warm. We were talking about my plans for the house, what furniture I needed, how I wanted to set up the yard. I felt accomplished, relieved, genuinely happy. Then I saw her. Sarah walked into the coffee shop, and I almost did not recognize her. She looked completely different from the vibrant woman I had known 3 years earlier. Her hair was unkempt roots grown out and desperately needing attention. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. She wore an oversized hoodie and jeans with holes that were clearly not a fashion statement, but signs of wear. Her backpack looked beaten up and old. Her face was gaunt, stressed, aged beyond her years. She walked to the counter and ordered the cheapest coffee on the menu. Our eyes met across the room. She froze. I could see shock, embarrassment, maybe even relief flash across her face. Marcus noticed and whispered, "Is that Sarah?" I nodded. Sarah hesitated, then slowly walked toward our table. Her voice was small, nothing like the confident person I remembered. "Hi, Raphael. Long time," she said quietly. I kept my tone polite but neutral. "Hi, Sarah. How have you been?" The silence that followed was heavy and awkward. She glanced at Marcus, who immediately picked up on the tension. "I will give you two some space," he said, moving to another table. Sarah sat down across from me. Her hands were trembling slightly. "You look great. Really great," she said, and I could hear the weight in those words. I responded, "Thanks. You look... Are you okay?" That is when her eyes started to water. For the next 20 minutes, Sarah told me everything. She told me about the financial disaster she was living through. Trent had lost 6 different jobs in 2 years. Every single time it was because of his attitude. He showed up late, argued with managers, acted unprofessional. Sarah had paid for everything. Rent, food, utilities, his motorcycle repairs, his guitar equipment. She had spent all $12,000 of her savings. She borrowed $5,000 from her parents. She now had $8,000 in credit card debt. She told me they were being evicted from their apartment. They owed over $4,000 in back rent and had 2 weeks to move out. She had no idea where they would go. She worked 2 jobs now, 60 hours a week. Full-time at her agency and part-time as a server at a restaurant. She was physically and mentally exhausted. Her relationship with her parents was strained because they were disappointed in her choices. She had lost touch with most of her friends out of sheer embarrassment. Then she told me about Trent's behavior. He refused every stable job offer, claiming he was too talented for normal work. His band had broken up because of his ego. He spent entire days playing video games. When she pressured him to contribute, he became verbally abusive. He called her nagging and unsupportive. He flirted with other women at bars right in front of her and did not care how she felt. Sarah was trapped in a nightmare of her own making. Then came the request. Through tears, she said, "Raphael, I know I do not deserve to ask this. I know I hurt you, but I am desperate." She explained she needed to borrow $3,000 to pay part of the rent debt and put down a security deposit on a cheaper place. "I will pay you back, I promise. I just need help getting out of this situation." Her voice broke as she continued. "I made a terrible mistake leaving you. I was so stupid. You were right there and I threw it away for this disaster." I felt a surge of mixed emotions. Sympathy for her situation. Validation that I had been right all along. A temptation to rescue her, because that is what the old me would have done. But a new voice in my head said clearly, "This is not your responsibility." I took a deep breath and said, "Sarah, I am really sorry you are going through this. I truly am. But I cannot lend you money." Her face fell. "Please, Raphael, I know I do not deserve it, but I am begging you. You were always so kind, so helpful. Please." Tears streamed down her face. I stayed firm but kind. "Sarah, listen to me. 2 years ago you told me I was too nice. You said you needed someone with edge, someone exciting. You chose Trent because he represented something you thought you wanted. And you know what, that was your choice to make. You had every right to choose what you thought would make you happy. But here is what I learned in these 2 years. Being nice is not weakness. Being responsible is not boring. Having stability is not a flaw." I continued. I spent months after our breakup questioning myself, wondering if I needed to change to become someone I was not. But then I realized something important. After we broke up, I focused on myself. I got promoted at work, I saved money, and last week I closed on a house. A 3-bedroom house with a yard. The shock on her face was visible. I worked hard. I made sacrifices. I stayed responsible. And now I own a home at 30 years old. Meanwhile, you chose someone who could not keep a job, who drained your savings, who did not respect you enough to carry his own weight. I leaned forward slightly. Sarah, if I lend you money right now, I am not helping you. I am enabling you to stay in this cycle. She looked confused. What do you mean? I asked directly. You are still with Trent, are you not? She hesitated. Yes, but… I cut her off. Then nothing will change. You will use my money to get a new place. Trent will continue to not work. You will drain yourself again. And in 6 months you will be back in the same situation. I cannot support that. I care about you enough to not enable this pattern. She tried one more time. So you are just going to let me become homeless? I shook my head. No. You are going to let yourself become homeless if you do not make different choices. Here is what I will do. I will give you numbers for organizations that help people in financial crisis. I will recommend a therapist who specializes in codependent relationships. But I will not give you money while you are still making the same choices that got you here. I stood up, preparing to leave. Sarah, you once told me I was too nice. Maybe I was. Maybe I would have given you that money before and felt good about being your hero. But the truth is, being nice does not mean being a doormat. It does not mean rescuing people from consequences of their own choices. Real kindness sometimes means letting people learn their lessons, even when it is hard. I hope you figure things out, I really do. But you have to do it yourself. I put my hand briefly on her shoulder. Good luck, Sarah. I mean that. Then I walked to Marcus, and we left the coffee shop together. I did not look back. Outside, Marcus said, "Man that took strength." I replied, "It did. But it was the right thing." I felt sad for Sarah, but I also felt proud of myself. I felt free from any obligation. I felt validated in my journey. I felt strong and clear about my boundaries. Inside the coffee shop, Sarah sat alone at that table, reality finally hitting her. She realized I had moved on completely, and I had moved on to a better place, while she remained stuck because of her own choices. 1 week after that encounter, I was unpacking boxes in my new house. It was a sunny afternoon, windows open, letting in fresh air. I had music playing softly in the background. As I unpacked dishes and books and clothes, I felt this deep sense of peace. I wondered occasionally if Sarah was okay. Jessica had told me that Sarah finally left Trent and moved back in with her parents temporarily. She was working on rebuilding her life. I was glad she was making better choices, but that was her journey now, not my responsibility. I thought about how much I had grown in 3 years. The old me would have given Sarah that money without hesitation. I would have tried to fix all her problems. I would have felt crushing guilt for saying no. But I had learned something crucial. Being nice is a strength when you have boundaries. Being kind does not mean sacrificing yourself. Being responsible is not boring. It is actually freedom. Real freedom. The freedom to make choices without financial stress, to sleep well at night, to build a life on a solid foundation. Stability is not the absence of excitement. It is the foundation for genuine happiness. I understood now that the right person will appreciate the qualities I have. Dependability, kindness, responsibility, thoughtfulness. The wrong person will always find fault, will always want something different. And that is okay. Not everyone has to value what I bring to the table. Those people simply are not my people. I had started dating again. I met someone named Amanda through my hiking group. She appreciated my thoughtfulness. She valued stability and kindness. We were not rushing into anything, but it felt promising. She did not make me feel like I needed to apologize for being who I was. At work, I continued to excel. I was recognized as a leader in my company. I mentored younger employees, sharing what I had learned about project management and professional growth. My new house was slowly becoming a home. I decorated it thoughtfully, making each room reflect who I was. I had space for future possibilities, whatever they might be. Every time I pulled into my driveway, I felt a sense of accomplishment that no one could take away from me. I was more confident now in my own skin. I did not apologize for being responsible. I set clear boundaries with everyone in my life. I chose to spend time with people who valued me for exactly who I was. I had learned one of life's most important lessons. You cannot convince someone to value you. Either they do or they do not. And that has to be okay. Not everyone will appreciate stability, kindness, and responsibility. Those qualities might seem boring to some people, but to the right person, they are everything. I smiled, thinking back to Sarah's words 3 years ago. You are too nice. I used to think that was a criticism, a fundamental flaw in my character. Now I understand there is no such thing as too nice for the right person. There is only not right for each other. And that realization set me free. Being a nice guy does not mean finishing last. It just means finishing with someone who deserves you. Bad boys might win in the short term. They might seem exciting and attractive at first. But nice guys build foundations that actually last. We own houses while bad boys couch surf. We create stable lives while they bounce from crisis to crisis. I walked to the window and looked out at my small yard. I had already started planning where I would plant vegetables in the spring. Maybe I would get a dog eventually. The possibilities felt endless. I thought to myself, maybe someday I will thank Sarah for calling me too nice, because it pushed me to become not just nice but strong, not just kind but boundaried, not just responsible but truly free. My final thought as I stood there was simple but profound. Honestly, I would not trade this stability, this peace, this home I have built for myself, for all the edge and excitement in the world. Because at the end of the day, nice guys might not be exciting, but we are the ones who have keys to our own front doors. So let me ask you something. Have you ever been told you are too nice, too boring, too stable? Have you ever felt like you needed to change who you are to keep someone interested? Drop a comment below and share your story. And if this resonated with you, smash that like button and subscribe, because I share more real-life stories about growth boundaries and finding your worth. Share this with someone who needs to hear that being responsible is not a flaw. It is a strength. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminded you that staying true to yourself always pays off in the end. Keep building your foundation. Keep being kind with boundaries. And remember that the right people will appreciate exactly who you are. Take care, and I will see you in the next one.